Hey, what's up? Back again with another episode of the Have It All Show. Joined to us today with our host, Kris Krohn.
What's up, everybody? Welcome. Thank you for joining. Today, I'm actually excited. I feel like I wrote a book just for you that we're literally going to cover in this entire session.
So really, though, the question today is, Kris, how do you show up? When you wake up in the morning, what's it look like? What's it feel like? When you go to the gym, how do you show up? When you get to work, are you going through the motions or do you show up with big energy? Because as Kris will tell you, it defines your results.
Dude, I walk around like I own the place.
I know you do.
But the reality is I own the place. I'm not talking about real estate. I mean, I got here, you got here, we own this place. And I think there's a lot of people that are... They're living this permission-based life where they're waiting for someone else to tell them that they can live, maybe tell them how to live. And it's like, wake up, get consciously present in this moment and live your life.
Kris, I have seen you go into a number of really critical conversations, negotiations, and the energy that you bring to the table is always so impressive. And it leads so many people to ask, is this guy always on?
Dude, people ask me that all the time. They're like, dude, it doesn't matter what time of day it is. Like, are you on caffeine? Are you drinking like coffee?
What's your secret?
I said, no, it's beasted. It's created. Like it's all by intentional design. But I sure as heck wasn't born that way.
Okay, Kris, the goal on the show is always to get to the real talk, right? We pull off the kid gloves and we get your perspective on things, your real perspective, untainted, unfettered. So here's my question for you right now. Okay, you got up on stage, it was just recently at our last event, and you told the audience that you used to be an introvert.
Yeah, shy.
That you were shy, that you would... Nervous to shake people's hands. I think you said that you'd shake people's hands and then be like, oh no, my hand was wet because of how sweaty my palms were.
Yeah.
And I'm calling BS. I'm like, ain't no way. I've seen the way that you enter a room. I have the hardest time imagining you being an introvert.
Dude, my experience of most people is that they are weak and they're losers, as in losing because of the way that they show up, which is with such little energy and unfortunately like tons of victimhood, but they can't even see that. Like that's just, and especially society today is fostering that. Like victimhood, it's everywhere. It's in, oh, I'm offended that you're offended at me. And like, it's just, everyone's offended, everyone's upset, everyone's powerless, everyone's waiting for someone else to make their life better. And the reality is there's only one person that can actually improve your life. I'm not talking about God, Jesus Christ. Yes, I'm talking about like you as a human being, just by virtue of how you use your choice. So Carson, yeah, I used to be a loser, weak, losing, until I realized that all of these people that I admire that are confident and strong and powerful, they are that way by choice. It's not an accident.
So wait a second. There are people that are legitimately born shy. That their entire lives, they're I don't like talking to people.
They're not born shy. They learn shy. No one escapes fifth grade.
How do you see that?
Dude, are you kidding me? Like you go to school, you're trying to please your teacher, you're trying to please your parents, you're trying to figure this thing out, you're trying to be cool, you're trying to hang out. And then like you try and then you think everyone's looking at you like, dude, you got mud on your face. Like everyone's making fun of you or you couldn't catch the football. Like no one escapes early childhood without having experiences that say nobody likes you, you can't do it, you're not good enough. That makes people shy. Shy is a choice.
So what do you do with natural dispositions though? Because in reality, there is a natural disposition.
Sure.
Like some people just aren't afraid of other people's judgmental thoughts or judgmental words. Yeah, but you're saying that wasn't you because that's you today.
So you're getting into the nature nurture, right? And it's like, am I saying that people aren't born with certain gifts or abilities? No, I think that we all have magic X factor. I think we have things that are working like in our favor. We've got things that make us special and unique, but most of us have those things buried by bad experience. In fact, I would argue that most people I meet that have some amazing superpower, some way to influence or impact or do something great, usually think that they're the worst at that thing.
Okay, so I guess the question that comes to mind then is how? Right? And that's actually what brought up this whole conversation is you brought to me a few titles of a book you're working on and you were like, what should we call it? And the title that I liked best was Crowds, 9 Habits to Stand Out. And that's why I started this conversation by saying, when you enter a room, you stand out.
Well,
You're telling me it wasn't always that way, so how'd you do it?
And it's not just standing out. I mean, there's two types of people in life. There are those that are literally just crossing things off their list. They're list takers.
Checklisters.
Yeah, I'm just checking things off my list. But then you have those that are like, wait a second, who cares about the effort if we don't get the result? So then you have your results-oriented people. You know, my wife, she loves building lists and then checking things off the list. And it's black or white, pass or fail. In my world, like if I put in effort, I don't get rewarded for effort. I get rewarded for a result. And the only way that you can get rewarded for a result is if you beast yourself into a person that can make that happen. And I don't think many of us are naturally born that way. I think that it's a series of choices that help us become that kind of person.
Got it. Because I agree with the checklist thing, because I think most people have what I call an employee mindset.
Yeah,
which
9 to 5, clock in, clock
clock
out.
in, clock out. I'm given a list of tasks,
Yep.
and my success or failure is determined by whether or not I complete the tasks.
Dude, can I tell you?
Not whether or not
Can I
got
tell you
the
why I wrote this
results.
book?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to be super honest. I decided to write this book because I had a couple of frustrating interactions with a member of our team, one of our employees. And I was like, oh, that mindset is driving me crazy. And it started with a couple of notes. I'm like, okay, there are some things that every human being should taught to become successful. And these are really basic habits, but I think they're getting lost. Like people just don't know these 9 basic habits. I'm like, wow, you know what? If you really want to set yourself apart from everyone else, then develop these 9 habits. These 9 habits, I believe you will get no less than 10 times more than the person next to you that doesn't have these habits, and maybe 100 times more.
Let me follow-up question before we dive into these habits, Kris. Is it more important today than ever before that you stand out?
You know, I think that last generation cared about getting ahead. And I think many millennials and the upcoming generation, I don't think they want to be rich. I don't think they want to be wealthy. I don't think they care to do something, for many of them, something extraordinary. I just think they want to figure out how to have enough money to live a flexible lifestyle. I think that they want to figure out how to get by in the most comfortable way with the least amount of friction, least amount of effort, and they just want a good basic life. By the way, there's nothing wrong with that, but what we're losing in our culture is like the science of what you do if you want to be a high achiever and also have high fulfillment in your life. I think most people are going to have regret if they can't figure out achievement and fulfillment.
So I also think there's another component. A lot of studies show that the rising generation cares more about making a difference, having an impact on the world. And I would follow that up and also say, you can't do that if you don't know how to stand out. Like you can't leverage, you can't throw your weight around like the way I've seen you throw your weight around, Kris.
Well, and the people that want to make a better world, the people that want everyone to win, the people that are community builders, we need them. But if you've ever worked with those individuals, with rare exception, they don't know how to get anything done. They represent the emotion of heart and community and love and connection. That's a beautiful thing. There's a place for that. But if you don't have implementers that know how to actually create that world, we get stuck.
Implementation.
Yeah.
Taking action is key. All right, Kris, let's dive in. Habit number 1.
Now, I want to be clear. These habits are for people that, yes, want to stand out, yes, want bigger results. I also think that these are the habits that are missing in today's world. And the first one, be early. It sounds really, really simple, but time is your most valuable asset. You've been told that your whole life, but you don't believe it. Trust me, you won't believe it until you're rich. When you start having a lot of money, you'll start realizing, oh my gosh, I'm going to go hang out with my buddies and they want me to bring the pizza. I'm going to call my personal assistant and have them take 10 minutes to arrange that logistic, because for me to do that is like $2,000 or $10,000 of my time. It doesn't make sense. You value your time when your time is valuable, but the only way to actually make your time valuable is to honor it in the first place. And most people, Carson, they disrespect time. I walk into a meeting where someone's 15 minutes late and they don't understand. My time is worth X amount of dollars. So when they're late and that meeting can't take place, they literally took thousands, in some cases, tens of thousands of dollars out of my pocket. And as a result, we think that rich people are prudes, or that they're jerks. And that's where we get this battle between the haves and the have-nots, the rich and the poor. But the reality is, rich people, if they've ever come across in that way, it's because they now know how to value their time, because it's not worth $10 an hour. It's not minimum wage. It's not $30 an hour. And they're not more valuable than the person that makes less money. But because they value their time, they're creating more value on this planet than most people can even dream of.
So I love this conversation about time because it's a fact. Time is worth more than money because it's finite, right? What drives inflation? The printing of more money. You make more of it available. By definition, it is losing value the more money we print. We can't print more time.
Well, let me tell you, Carson, how most people waste their time. It's not, hey, I showed up 7 minutes late, and so there were 7 people in this meeting, 7 times 7 minutes. I wasted almost an hour of the company's time. By the way, at the average rates, I just told the company to literally throw, $550 in the waste can. That's like a real trackable thing. Here's how most people waste time. They're not present. They are not consciously present. They're too busy rehearsing their traumas of the past, the mean thing that someone said, and what they're doing is they're practicing victimhood, which is powerlessness, because there is no power in the past. And yet, so many of us will literally spend, I have found, hours, sometimes up to 5, 8, 9, 10 hours of their day is living non-present. And by the way, if they're not stuck in the past, they're worried about the future. And there's nothing you can do about a future that hasn't happened yet. All we have is this present moment. It's the only moment where power exists. Like, I help people literally become 10 times more effective just by learning how to be present in this moment instead of getting stuck in a time that's already gone by or one that hasn't happened yet.
And Kris, I'm just curious how much do you think a mobile device, people having phones with them all the time, contributes to us not being present?
Dude, this right here is like the greatest gift and the greatest curse. You think about 200 years ago, I need to do a meeting with you. I'm going to write you a letter and say on this day, I'm going to arrive by horse and buggy, and then we'll have a conversation about buying your piece of land, your tract, versus a text. So I love that this can be used in such an efficient way, but when people get lost in social media land, when they're literally just burning time going through, Netflix binges, when they're just literally vicariously living through everyone else by checking out everyone else's social page instead of living their own life, that is a life that is already lost. There's not much of a difference between that and suicide. You're literally not living your life.
Wow. Kris, we have intentionally fostered a culture at our company that we sort of shun the corporate stuffy way of sort of the old school way of doing business, right?
Yeah, hit millennials.
We just hired a new bunch of sales reps, and they all said, I was so surprised at how laid back you guys are. And we do. We have a flexible culture here. We work hard and we play hard, and we laugh at all the ridiculousness that comes from corporate hierarchy. But you're saying time is not one of those things that we're flexible on.
No, I think that when it's time to show up, you show up. And then when it's time to play hard. And so it's just one or the other. You either are present or you're not. The mind, there's this idea out there that I think is a lie. It's called multitasking. It's like, oh yeah, I can do all these different things at once. I'm like, no, you're good at doing a bunch of rapid, succinct, back-to-back activities because it helps you feel good, it helps you feel accomplished. You got a fast-working mind, and you're the ultimate, list person that just says at the end of the day, I've done all these different things. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a good thing. But the reality is you're only doing one thing at a time, not 2, not 3, not 5. And so I think that people need to learn how to say, what am I doing in this moment? How do I be fully present for it? You ever attended a meeting and you were thinking about last night's movie? You ever attended a meeting and thought about that lovemaking? You ever thought about you were in a meeting doing something, but your mind was somewhere else? Have you ever been driving in the car and then all of a sudden you blink and you're 10 miles further down the road because your mind was elsewhere? These minds are built to powerfully reimagine events that have happened or events that could happen. And imagination, frankly, is a beautiful tool unless abused and wasted. And I think that learning the power of being present and being focused in the moment, right here with you in this podcast, looking in the lens, only directing all my thoughts and attention on you, this is the only thing that matters in this moment. And if I go anywhere else, my power diminishes. And then it's like, what was the purpose of the moment anyway? If you're going to be anything less than 100%, you're trying to boil water, you're missing 1 degree, you get steam. You don't boil the water and you're not going to get a fully cooked meal. And it's the same thing in life. You're either 100% all there and committed or you're not at all. So be here when you're going to be here. And if you're not going to be here, then don't be here.
Kris, you said when you're not present, your power diminishes. What do you mean?
I love C.S. Lewis. He wrote, the Chronicles of Narnia, and he wrote other great books. One of them was Screw Tape Letters. Mm-hmm. And basically it's a story of like Satan's kingdom. Maybe it's like Satan's Bible. It's this idea where there was Uncle Screw Tape, this high-level tempter, high up in Satan's kingdom, and he was writing letters to his nephew. And he was trying to teach his nephew how to be a good tempter because he was a junior tempter. He was entry level. And at one point, Screw Tape is just reaming on his nephew, just saying, oh my gosh, you were assigned this one human, you had one job, and you allowed your human to become present. You idiot. How could you have done that? Don't you know that you're supposed to keep your human in the past? They can't do anything when they're in the past. Like, seriously, help that individual think about everything painful or everything that wrong or their disappointments, everything that in life has not worked out. Because they can't do it. They're impotent. There's no power there. But if you can't keep them there, don't you know, my idiot nephew, you're supposed to keep them in the future? Like, get them worrying about things that even haven't happened. Most of the things that we're afraid of will never occur. But you made a mistake. You allowed your human to become present. And in the present is the only opportunity for us to actually be powerful and act and do things that matter. Whatever you do, keep your human from being present. So yeah, the moment I'm no longer fully present with you, power is gone. I am impotent.
So what about reflecting on the past?
Oh, I do. I think we should, when we get stuck in the past, it's because we are victims reliving it and feeling suffering from it. I get it. You went through something painful, but now you've turned it into suffering where you can't let go. And there's no power for you in that state. So reflecting on it and learning the right lesson will get you unstuck. Fortunately, most of us are too busy learning the wrong lesson, which is the limiting beliefs. That person doesn't like me. They shouldn't have treated me that way. I don't like that they did this or that. It's like, those ideas won't free you. The ones that will are where you get to say, what am I learning? And the question anytime we're stuck and hung up on our past is just to ask, what am I learning from it? Not how wrong it was that person did that thing to you. What are you learning? And if you learn instead of a bitter, nasty, depressing, angry-filled, pissed-off lesson, if you can actually genuinely learn from what happened, then you can release, then you can let go, and then you can move on with your life. So yeah, reflect on your past to learn from it, not to get stuck in it.
Okay, so this habit is also, you said be early is the habit that we should develop.
Well, dude,
this also takes planning, right? Which means thinking about the future.
Carson, it's the mantra of my life. One of the most powerful rogue ideas that I believe in is to be early. I retired at the age of 26 and through financial freedom because I believed that it was important to be early. And right now I'm 41 years old. And at my age, dude, I look at all my buddies and a number of people my age, they're letting their bodies go. Their prime is past. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, you have your whole life. And modern medicine is going to keep you alive for a really long time. Like, protect this temple, invest in it, take care of it. I'm going to be more fit when I'm 50 than when I'm 40. I'm going to be more fit when I'm 60. I'm going to push it as long and as hard as I can because I don't want to be late to the game when I'm older in life and say, oh, I wish I could go back. I got these regrets. What if I wish I had? I'm like, no. I'm early to the game. Same thing like world travel. I've taken my wife to 40 different countries. That's one of our goals, to see 100 places in the world. I'm not waiting till retirement. I'm doing it all now. Everything meaningful in life, there's a time for it to take place. And my goal is to get it done earlier. By the time that time actually rolls around, I want to say I already did that. I did that years ago.
So I love this conversation, Kris, and I do agree that being present is the only time that you actually have power. But it takes planning. Like, to be early to things, you have to be on point, which requires you to be focused somewhat, at least. I mean, am I wrong? It requires you to focus somewhat in the future.
You got to be intentional. Some of us are living life on accident. We're like sleepwalking zombies. We're allowing life to happen to us, not for us. And if you want life to happen for you, then you got to get intentional and say, hey, I've got this moment. What can I do with this moment? Is this the moment to rest? Is this the moment to sleep? Is this the moment to play? Is this the moment to haul? What am I supposed to do with this moment? And then whatever that choice is, then be present to it and make the most of it.
Gotcha. Okay, so another thing that I'm really curious of your perspective on, Kris, is this about me or is this about the other people that I'm involved with?
What do you mean?
I mean, am I being on time for my sake? Or, I guess I'm wondering, at what level does respect play into this? Respect for, colleagues and people I'm working with?
Listen, if someone wants some of my time, I want them to responsibly procure it. But likewise, it's me reciprocating and being respectful of their time. I mean, listen, time is the universal unit of measurement that binds all of us together. It's someone might be wealthier than the next. Some of us might have developed a talent bigger than the other person. But if there's one thing that really keeps us all equal, it's that we all have 24 hours in the time. There's nothing you can do to change that. I may have massive amounts of leverage because I'm in 1,000 places at once today. And that's by design, because I know that my time is limited, so I'm going to make the most of the time that I have. But I want to be just as respectful. In fact, if I'm ever late to an appointment, the first thing I'll do is I'll address it, I'll call it out, and I'm going to apologize for it, because I recognize that there's value that is lost or diminished because I wasn't present. And so for me, I like to spend my time with intentional people that are conscious, aware, and awake, that are like, hey, we got this time. How are we leveraging this time? And by the way, it doesn't mean we can't screw around or goof off or have fun, because again, it's not just achievement. We're balancing fulfillment. I learned that from Tony Robbins. He said, you'll meet people that have achieved like such amazing feats that are miserable because they haven't extracted fulfillment from their choices. And this is a balance between the two of them.
I think he actually talks about, who's the pro snowboarder? Shaun White. He's amazing. That redhead.
I met Shaun White. I sat next to Shaun
amazing.
White. Yeah.
Isn't it while Tony's talking about the success, the achievement versus fulfillment, and he talks about Shaun White, that after he'd won all these gold medals, he actually had like suicidal thoughts. And it's like, how can you...
I think that's the problem with getting so hung up with achieving something, that if you don't like who you're becoming, if you don't enjoy who you are, if you don't love who you are in the process of producing the achievement, then by the time you get the thing that you were after, you may look back and say it wasn't worth it. These days, I'm not interested in what I get. I'm curious how I get it. And if I don't like who I become in the process of getting it, then I'm not going to actually set out to pursue it in the first place.
Did you catch the Disney Pixar new movie Soul?
I did, yes.
I love that part at the end when he finally, the character's been after this thing the whole movie, and he finally gets it, and then he walks out afterward and he's sort of dumbfounded, and he's like, it didn't feel like I thought it would.
Yeah, he thought his whole life didn't matter until he got the thing, and then by the time he got it, he's like, wait a second. Everything that came before getting it is what mattered the most. So that's the first one, is be early. The second habit, to really stand out and separate yourself from everybody else, respond quickly.
What do you mean by this?
So most people are surprised. They're like, well, Kris, show me how to make $1 million, or show me how to be a good earner, or show me how to achieve. And at some point, whether you're going after an Olympic gold medal or whether you want to launch $1 billion company, whatever you're pursuing, there's a number of choices it's going to take to get that thing. And only in hindsight will you understand how many choices it took. You might say, for me to make my first $1 million, it took 14,182 choices. Well, guess what? If you're sitting on the pot spending an entire day pondering how you should make that one choice, you're never going to make enough choices in time to be successful. Life is literally passing you by, which means we've got to balance making rapid choices, but also making sure that they're not the wrong choices or premature choices. Everyone should become obsessed with making as many of the right choices as possible as they can. Because most people, Carson, they're actually suffering from indecision. And the cost of indecision is so much worse in most cases than a bad decision.
I can look at times in my life, definitely, where I gave my power away because I didn't want to make tough decisions. And I was hoping something else would come along and make the decision for me.
Right.
And you're never happy with the results that the world chooses for you.
Yeah, if you don't make your choice, then time and people and circumstance will make it for you.
So you stand up from the crowd by being a quick responder. How do you find that?
So here's what it means. If you have my cell phone and you have permission to text me, then I'm going to text you back. And it's not going to be days later. It's going to be quick. I put up all sorts of firewalls so that I communicate with the right people in the right ways and the right times. And my entire company is built on like Skype threads. And so no one's texting me, no one's emailing me. We've done everything in our power to abolish email. If you want to communicate, you do that through Skype. And I can go literally days or weeks without checking in on certain channels. I'm there when I need to be there. But the point is that first of all, when you've made a commitment to do something, then you better be responding within that time frame so that you maintain your integrity. And when someone reaches out to you, think about it this way. You got big goals in life, right? You got this big dream. And the bigger the dream, the more people it's going to take, which means the more interactions are going to be required. If you are dawdling, taking your time, or putting off conversations, then you might as well just divorce yourself from your dream, because you're just not making enough decisions to actually make it a reality.
So I'm intrigued because these first two habits that you're talking about, Kris, being early and responding quickly, they get rid of this notion of being a lone ranger, a lone wolf trying to achieve your goals by yourself.
Those people rarely get anything that they want in life. Most people are lone wolves. Most people are stuck, stranded, with putting their head down, working hard under this delusion. I'm hallucinating that I'm going to get where I want to go all by myself. It's like, no, it's going to take an army of people. Look at the value chain. Look at all the people connected. You want to do this thing. Look at all the people it impacts. So you better wake up and start working with these people and connecting with them, because if you don't, and you operate under this delusion of aloneness, you're never going to get anywhere in life. Those people never get anywhere.
So I have two questions on this, Kris. One is a curiosity that is super technical, but I believe a lot of people fail to respond when communicating digitally because they read messages, they mark them as read with the intention of coming back to them, and then never do. I feel like that is a plague for most digital communication. What is your practice specifically?
So if I have a relationship with someone, then I'm going to be responding to that person. And I have a process for how I mark and keep track of all of my communications, because I have a rule. You're not allowed to receive a communication that you're supposed to respond to and then not respond to it. That's the point. So many people think that responding is optional. I'm like, then so are your goals, then so are your dreams. But if you have a commitment to be in a relationship with me where we're trying to get something out of each other by working together, then you've got to be responsive. I'm going to tell you right now, if I reach out to you and a day goes by and you don't respond back, one of my rules is I don't go to bed until everyone's been responded back to. But if you can lapse one day without responding to people, then you can lapse two. And if you can lapse two, you can lapse infinity, which means you're lost. Like you're at a point in your life where you're just not serious enough to really get anything done, because you're not taking choice serious enough. You're not making enough of them. You're never going to get where you want to go.
Well, and I'm curious with your process, Kris, how many times do you respond to someone to let them know that you don't have an answer yet, right? I imagine that the other part of this equation is people don't respond quickly because they're like, I don't know what to say yet.
I paid over $1 million to one of my mentors who taught me over years many wonderful things, but the most valuable lesson was this: take as much time as you need to make a decision. And at first I thought, wait a second.
That seems counterintuitive to this habit.
This sounds like procrastination.
Yes.
And then he went on and further explained. He said, no, it's not. It's there's an amount of time that you need for every decision. Let's say that you need to take a business trip, and the trip is in 6 weeks. And you might be deciding right now if you should go. But guess what? You're in a position where you can make that decision 5 weeks from now. And life might shift or change course. So instead of deciding today, give yourself all the time that you really need. For me, I make most of my business trip decisions within 3 weeks of going anywhere. And I give myself the maximum amount of time, because guess what? There's going to be course corrections along the way. If I need to make a $10,000 decision on something to buy for my company, and I don't need to make that decision for 30 days, then it would be stupid to make the decision right now. What I should do is continue weighing it, and I've got a deadline. The deadline is I need to make the decision in 30 days. I promise you I will not make that decision until the 30th day, so that I can evolve, I can mature, I can ponder, I can think, and maybe life will move more in that direction and accelerate it, or maybe it'll move me away. I'm not making a $10,000 decision until I have to. And what this means is, instead of delaying, it means that you're giving yourself all the time that you need to make the best decision, instead of a rash decision, a premature decision, or worse, like we've been talking about, indecision, no decision at all.
Kris, so I love what you're saying, but how do you balance the two? Because it does seem contradictory. You're saying respond quickly.
Yes.
Communicate quickly.
Yep.
Make decisions quickly. But then you're saying take all the time that you need to make every decision.
So there's this idea called the value chain. And for me, the ball is always in someone's court. And I have this system called clarify, verify. And I always am clarifying and then verifying if you and I in an understanding know whose court the ball is in. So for example, Carson, you reach out to me and you say, Kris, I need this thing. And then I'll say, when do you need that by? Well, I need a decision by next week. Great. Next week, I want you to text me back and I'll give you my final decision. I've put the ball in your court. I don't have to manage it. I communicated rapidly with you, but now I've got a week to think about it. And I'm waiting for you to come back to me and I'll give you my final decision. I have the benefit of 7 days to think and mull it over. And I'll tell you this, if I make the decision today, it will always be a worse decision than the one that I'll make in 7 days.
Yeah, because that's a no-brainer because
give yourself the maximum amount of time that is available to make a decision. By the way, sometimes I only have a second to make a decision. Like, you're asking me questions and I'm responding. This is live. This is real time. It's not like I can say, you know what, I'll get back to you in 10 minutes. The show is rolling when I'm doing a live anything, when I'm doing a live event. The moment to make a decision is in the moment. But sometimes we get 2 minutes and sometimes we get 10. Here's what I learned about most people. Most people say, I put myself in a bucket. I'm either indecisive or I make slow decisions or I make rapid decisions. And I'm saying those are all wrong. What you should do is make the decision after consuming all the time that you're allowed before making it, and you'll make the best decisions that way. By the way, be an A-player communicator. So if someone reaches out, I'm responding same day to them. And I'm gonna make sure that we're passing the ball back and forth while juggling this paradox of having as much time as I need to make an informed decision.
Right, so you're saying you communicate quickly. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to make decisions.
Doesn't mean you have to make decisions quickly, but it means that you should be communicating where you're at. There should never be confusion.
Okay, use this term A player that we also use here at the company. And I'm just curious, employees, you've been a manager of people and interact with people for years. Talk to me percentages, just your gut instinct, percentages of people that communicate well, communicate medium, communicate low.
Dude, all of these rules that I'm sharing right now, most people suck at them. Like household, common knowledge, schooling, parenting, didn't teach any of this. This is how to be successful as a human being in life. And the whole purpose of this episode is to grow a better human. It's literally to help you be better today than you were yesterday. And if you're learning things that you hadn't learned before, these are things I think you should have been raised with. These are things that I teach my kids at the breakfast table when we're doing our daily morning lessons. And if you want to be successful, anyone in life, then these are things that you have to understand so you can become an A player. Most people are B or C players. And I only hang out with A players. And I have a definition of what an A player is. They follow these rules. And if they don't follow these, if you biff it up on these enough times, you're out. You usually get 3 strikes. And if you can't play by these rules, then that just means that you're playing more of a mediocre game. And if you hang out with mediocre, you get mediocre. It is true. You become the average of the people that you hang out with. That's the same for business owners. If you hire some A players, mostly B players, which is what most cultures consist of, then you're going to get subpar results.
So what you're saying is our entire company needs to listen to this podcast. Got it. I will make it.
I'm writing the book for our team, bro. I'm like, who are you writing this book for? I'm like, I'm writing it for our people. Because I want to make sure that we're not erring on some of the most basic habits that create A-player human beings.
I want to throw one more nuance at you, and then we'll move on to habit number 3. And that nuance is you said that you respond quickly to the communications you are supposed to respond to. How do you determine that? Because I imagine you actually receive tons of communications in a day that you maybe never committed to be in that relationship, that engagement, that communication. Yeah,
so I get 3 types of communications. I get communications with people I'm supposed to communicate with.
And what does that mean?
And that means that we have an understanding. For example, Carson, you and I, we're going to communicate with each other because you're the CEO of my company and I'm providing vision and guidance and I'm providing some expertise and experience. And then ultimately I'm leaving you to make the decision. So you and I have to confer with each other. So that's the first category, is people that you have an arrangement to communicate with. By the way, if you sire a child or if you've got a partner, these are people that you are locked in committed relationships with, and there's an understanding. We get to communicate with each other, and you owe it to those people to give them good communication. I believe rapid communication. I believe you should be a proactive communicator. You shouldn't be waiting for them to ask you questions. You should be in it to win it with them in this mindset that we're here together for a purpose. So this is pre-designated. The second category is people that you want to be in a relationship with. And then the third category is the people you don't want to be in a relationship with. When I want to be in a relationship with someone, I'm proactively reaching out saying, hey, can we get on a communication level where we connect with each other? And then, of course, I have people that will reach out to me and ask me questions. And either I don't want to have a relationship with them and I'll tell them as much or hand them off to somebody else. Or, more importantly, it's individuals that are breaking the hierarchy of our company. I used to be the worst manager on the planet. We had a flow chart and an organizational chart of who reports to who. And then I would go throughout the company and break the value ladder, break the chain. And basically everyone's like, well, when Kris reaches out, I guess I report to him, but then I have a technical boss. Dude, I was really screwing it up. So I'll have people in my own organization will reach out and say, Kris, what do you think of this? And I'll say, well, I'll give you my feedback, but ultimately go back to the person that you're reporting to because I'm impotent. I'm not here. I have no power. Because if I break my own chain of command, then I break the whole system.
I think it's hilarious, Kris, because there's some people on our team that have been with us long enough that they've experienced that, where Kris would go to them directly to get the result that he wanted, which can bear fruit.
Yeah, but it's got to be permission-based, and it's got to be according to the person that owns that department.
And I think recently, Kris, even you've had some messages from people that you really surprised them when you were like, this is kind of my thoughts, but ultimately go to the person you respond to, and they're like, really? Like,
wait,
how
isn't this your
works?
company? Yeah. But I used to break my own company all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm done with those days.
Okay, Kris, bring us in. Standout habit number 3. So by review, real quick, standout habit number 1 was be early. Second, respond quickly. Number 3,
follow through. Most people that I meet, if you want to know there's between a real A player and a B player, an A player follows through. They make a commitment and then they do what they say. When I meet people and people are in my life, I watch them carefully. And here's the first thing that I really want to know. It's not, are you cool? It's not, do I like you? It's, do you have integrity? Do you do what you say you're going to do? If you text me and say, yeah, I'll call you in 5 minutes, and then you call me 5 hours later, I'm sorry, I think you have poor integrity. 5 minutes goes by, and if you can't talk to me, you should text me back and say, it looks like now's not going to be a good time for me to communicate, but I can make an appointment with you 5 hours from now to talk to you at this point. That person has impeccable integrity. It's not always that you're able to do everything that you say you can. It's that you're communicating through the entire process as you're making efforts to do those things. And most people have really crappy integrity. Most people are not a man or a woman or an it of their word. Most people don't do what they say they're going to do. And those people, dude, we can hang out, we can play, we can have fun. I'm not doing business with you. I'm not getting close to you. I would never get in business bed with you.
So this makes me think of, there are 2 types of people I feel like, as I've done a lot of hiring for the company and interviewed a lot of people and had to fire and let people go. 2 types of people. Those who write stuff down and those that depend on their memory alone to be able to get things done.
Dude, I was just at a restaurant with my wife celebrating 2 of my 4 kids. They're getting their black belts. So then there will be 3 black belts in the family aside from me. And I was trying out this brand new restaurant, and there was a young server there, young man, and there were 6 of us. Oh no, me and my wife, and my 2 kids. There was 4 of us in this situation, and we were all giving him complicated orders. I want this appetizer, but I got to be late. Can you bring it out with the food? By the way, bring these drinks. And he wasn't writing anything down. And I complimented him. I said, hey, you have a fantastic memory.
Uh-oh.
And then guess what? He forgot not everything, but he forgot most things. And I'm like, oop, that was a premature compliment, because this young man is like most people that I meet. When we have a conversation, it gets complicated because we're deciding more than one thing. If you're not taking notes, I'm assuming that you're gonna biff it. Unless you have a photographic memory, my experience of most employees is that 80% of the time they will do what they're supposed to, and 20% of the time they won't. And they probably reflect and think, look at me, look at my batting average. I'm batting 800. And I'm like, to me, you're 0. You're batting nothing because you dropped a 5th of everything that we talked about. Do you really want me to work with a human being that only does 4 out of the 5 things that they commit to? It's like, hey, I want to marry you, and I'm going to do this and this and this. And then I forget to promise to be fidelitous. I'm like, yeah, I slept with that girl. I'm like, well, guess what? That ruined everything. And if I work with someone, if I'm paying you and we have a relationship and you forget things from time to time, I just want to be clear, you're not going to be working with me very long because you're a zero in my book. I want people that can be impeccable with the word. And it doesn't mean that they have to be spot on achieving every time, but they should be communicating when they're not. I do expect you that if you commit to 10 things, that you write the 10 down and that you do the 10, and then you come back and tell me what you did. And if you don't have that habit, then I'm sorry, you will never stand out of the crowd.
It's almost like these habits stack.
They do.
Chris, I'm smiling.
Dude, it's really like, hey, what's Kris talking about today? Being a responsible human being. By the way, you can make millions of dollars when you're a responsible human being.
Teaching people how to be responsible human beings. Chris, I'm smiling ear to ear over here because you jogged a memory of an experience that we had.
What's that?
It was a meeting we had with our team. We were having an event that weekend, and you were rattling a list off of things we needed there that night.
Yes.
For the event to the individual in charge of making sure everything was there. And I remember sitting there and I was watching this exchange, and you're like, we need this, we need B, we need C, we need D, we need E. And each item you were adding little tweaks and being like, but make sure it's this kind and not that kind.
I was very intentional.
You were very intentional, very specific on what you wanted. And I kept looking at this individual on our team, and she wasn't writing anything down.
And by the way, when I see that happening, I'm panicking inside because I'm like, I'm literally watching you fail.
So you were rattling this stuff off, and I stopped it, and I was like, whoa, hold on. Are you getting all this? And she said, getting what?
I'm like, Kris is giving you exact instructions on how to win.
He's
and
giving
right
us
now,
exactly
because you're not even
what you
writing
want.
it down, you're not going to win. Because if you miss one of these things, Kris is going to think you're a loser. By the way, doesn't diminish from the value that you're precious and priceless before God and me. I love human beings, but you will lose.
And I remember this individual pulled out a notebook and they started writing things down, and they were sort of indignant that I would have the audacity to command them to write down items that they would add to their to-do list. Anyway, it was funky, but I just remember them saying, what things? I'm like, oh my gosh. If you're not writing things down, you cannot have the integrity to do everything that's asked of you, or that you agree to do.
Everything that you agree to needs to show up somewhere. For me, I don't usually make lists. I make appointments. So when you open up my calendar, it is literally booked with not necessarily appointments, but me booking myself to do the things that I promised to do. So if I say, hey, I need to think about this, and then I'm going to get back to you next Thursday, then before that Thursday, I'm going to book 5 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour in my calendar, whatever the amount of time I need to achieve that thing. And I'm going to book myself to fulfill on my commitment, which is why people are like, wow, if you've ever done business with Kris Krohn, or if you do anything, he's impeccable with his word. He remembers everything, he responds to everything, and he fulfills on everything. And I might not be liked by a number of people for a number of reasons, but it's not that one. I'm going to do everything that I say I'm going to do every single time to a T, as if I believe that the universe only responds to like that level of order and organization.
Well, and I can attest to the fact that you are on top of everything, Kris. I've been surprised. There's times you sit me down and you're like, hey, you remember 3 weeks ago we were in that meeting and I mentioned this one thing and da-da-da-da-da. Did we ever jump on that? And I'm even like trying to be on top of writing everything down and checking it off, and you still catch me at times where I'm like, freak, I didn't get that one done. Even though I wrote it down, it fell in the cracks. Yep. So it is impeccable.
And honestly, I think that's one of the challenges of being a human is you've got to develop, don't steal my system, develop your own. Ask yourself, how can I keep track of every agreement that I form so that I fulfill on it by the time that I say I did, so that I have integrity? And I think that skill set alone is what takes people further in life than anything else. Mm-hmm. I meet people that time's gone by, they don't have the things in life that they want. And then I spend a little bit of time with them and I realize, where are all of your basic habits for growing? Where's all your basic habits for being powerful? Where's your basic habits for being reliable or responsible? They're not here. Of course you don't have what you want. And it's not because something unfair happened to you in the world, and it's not because of what someone did to you. It's up to each one of us at some point to wake up and recognize that if we're going to be successful, it's not luck, it's design. You look at anyone successful that you admire, study their habits, emulate their habits, and then you at least have the possibility of getting what they got.
In this conversation about follow through, to me, you can tell what a person actually cares about because they'll follow through on the things they care about. They'll write the things down that they care about. It's easy to forget the things you don't care about. You're like, it's probably not that important.
Yeah. Agreed.
Standout habit number 4.
Be positive. It sounds so simple, but the majority of people are either naturally skeptical or they're realists. Most people are glass half empty to some extent. And the reality, I remember when I learned this from Tony Robbins, I loved it the way he said it. He said, negative people see problems, negative people focus on problems, negative people grow problems. Positive people find solutions. They see solutions. They put effort and energy into solutions. And when I'm judging, for example, an employee, because a part of this book is like, listen, if you want to be successful in business or if you want to literally get a raise, then these are the habits that you use to get there. And, I'll have employees that will come to me and they'll say, hey, we have this problem. And then I'll have a handful of employees that come to me and say, hey, we have this idea. Well, what is that? Well, it's a solution to this problem. They've thought past the problem. They've gotten solution minded. And the reality is, people that are negative grow problems in the garden of their mind. Our minds are gardens. And so I think that positive people, by the way, they achieve more. Positive people have more. Positive people get more. I think positive people have more of what it is that they want and desire in life. And that's because they've cultivated not this potpourri, overly optimistic, unrealistic mindset for life, but I think that they understand that happy people are motivated and motivated people get stuff done. And sad people are unmotivated and unmotivated people get less done. And I'm not paying people for their time. I'm paying them to produce results. I'll tie every position to some type of ROI in the company, which is you can value your contribution by what you produce as a whole. And you should then ask yourself, well, what's my ROI? You're not going to get a positive ROI if you're a negative person. You're going to really struggle, or you'll get at least a lot less of a measure of what you're capable of. So you have to have habits for how do you cultivate a positive mindset. Dude, look what happened in 2020. Where's the positivity? Like, negativity is abounding. Suicides are through the roof. It's like people don't know how to be positive in a world where someone says, halt the economy, or you have to social distance, or you can't see people. And then we fall apart because we haven't cultivated. I think the biggest blessing that came from 2020 is revealing to so many of us that we are not as positive as we thought they were because we weren't equipped with the skills and abilities to cope with these pressures.
So Kris, what do you do with people that claim to be realists? They're like, I'm just looking at the world as it really is.
Dude, when it comes to money and finance, I'm the biggest realist you'll meet. I'm not optimistic at all. But that's not about being positive or negative. That's about seeing things the way they are. I don't think there's anything wrong actually with being a realist when it comes to perceiving reality accurately. However, we're all on a journey for more, to become more. Maybe it's not materialistically to get more, maybe it is. But if you want to evolve in life, then the biggest asset you have that will help you in your evolution is the energy you carry with you. And positivity and negativity vibrate as two very opposite energies. A positive energy inspires. It makes you want to move. It makes you want to act. It makes you want to make things happen. And a negative energy shuts you down and says stop and slow down and get sedentary.
So I think we could spend an entire episode talking about this idea of being positive. So don't want to dive too deep into it, Kris, but talk to me about some of your processes to help people find that positivity.
I got a couple things that I do every day to foster positivity inside of me before I even know what the day is going to hit me with. In other words, I want to meet negativity. I want to meet the world or anything it throws at me with reinforced positivity. I learned that from Kevin Hart. And I have a couple of habits that help me do that. And the first one is I spend time every morning in my mind palace. I rehearse just like I would playing the piano and learning how to play the piano. I practice and rehearse positivity. I go into my mind palace. I see myself surrounded with everything I want as if it's already happened. And I feel good. I see myself in my ideal body and I feel good. I see myself with all the wealth I'm building. I feel good. I see myself with how much my foundation is giving and the tens of thousands of breakthroughs and the money. And I feel good. And I see my wife and my relationship with my kids as the highest and best possible. And I'm flooding myself with all these amazing positive emotions because I'm practicing what I hope will happen. And I'm not going to wait to see if it'll happen. I'm going to get it in the one place where I guarantee it will happen anytime I want, which is in the mind. So that's the first habit. And then the second one is I work out every day. I have to. The body is literally, when you move it intentionally, meaningfully, it is designed to release endorphins that make you happy and positive and higher energy. And so people that are missing out on that one habit, they do not know what they're missing out on. But I guarantee you people that aren't working out will most likely be caught saying things like, oh, I just don't feel like they have the energy. I'm tired. I'm just not feeling so good. I think I need to lie down. I'm like, get off your ass and get up and live your life and move your body, and don't wait for the lethargy to smack you in the face. Get out proactive ahead of the game. That means, dude, I was up at 5 o'clock this morning. I was at the gym. I was freaking busting it out. I'm doing my cardio. I'm getting my heart as healthy and strong as it can be. I'm making it stronger today than it was yesterday. And I'm lifting my weights. I'm making my body. I'm literally stronger today in any exercise I'm lifting than at any point earlier in my life. I'm not doing that so that I look a certain way. I'm doing it predominantly so I can feel a certain way. So between what I practice in my mind and what I practice with my body, that is aiding me, is aiding in my chemistry, my natural ability to feel good and feel positive. Because like Kevin Hart said, I'm going to meet negativity with reinforced positivity. And you can't do that unless you've been practicing it. And you should go to that neural gym every morning and you should practice.
So I'm really excited this week. We've got an event, Kris, and one of the polls that I'm setting up is asking people to rate their energy level.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited to see, because we're going to have several thousand on, and so it'll be a pretty decent statistic, actually, when
we got like
respond.
22,000 people registered.
Yep, so it should be a good number of people, but I'm just curious, what do you think it's going to be? What are people going to say about their energy levels today?
Dude, I think that most people consciously do not have habits. The majority don't actually have intentional habits to raise their energy. And so most people do feel tired, lethargic. Most people don't. And then what that translates to is I don't have the motivation. And people ask me all the time, like, wow, Kris, how come you're always so motivated? Where does motivation come from? I say, well, motivation comes, first of all, from energy. You got to have good energy. Yeah, where does energy come from? Well, energy is a choice. And there's things that you foster, like I get a certain amount of sleep. I eat certain foods. Like there's habits that I have that will aid in having that energy. But the most important is choice. And I think the most important choice I've probably ever made in my entire life is who I'm going to be in any negative situation. I once sat down for days and thought through every negative, nasty thing. I had this one thing over a decade ago. I got hit with something so hard, it caught me so off guard, and it took me down. It was the worst year of my life. And I said, I never want that to happen again. How do I get ahead of the curve? And so I sat down and said, who am I going to be if this happens? Who am I going to be if I get divorced? Who am I going to be if my child commits suicide? Who am I going to be if? What happens if I get gang raped? What happens if this happened? I started thinking...
Was a global pandemic on that
global
list?
Global pandemic was not on the list. I got to be honest. I just, that one hasn't repeated itself very often in history.
But a downturn in the economy was on your list.
Yeah, 100%.
Shared that.
I love downturns. I love it. But bottom line is, when things get bad, if you can be at your best, then the worst of times become your best of times.
Wow. So I think a lot of positivity comes down to how we perceive the experiences that we have, right? What we derive from. I mean, we are machines that are designed to create meaning.
Perception is everything. Everyone thinks their own perception is reality, which is not true. But the way you perceive it...
Wait, what?
It's weird. There's literally, with 8 billion people on the planet nearly, there's 8 billion perceptions. And all of us think that we're perceiving things as they are. But it's all colored drastically. It's warped by our beliefs. And most of our most important beliefs that form perception are created from trauma. Really powerful negative experiences that we've had in life. You know, you take a woman that's been raped by men or a man, and she can't help when she sees men about wondering, am I safe? Is something bad going to happen? And so unfortunately now this individual sees men and has all sorts of horrific energies and emotions and memories that come up. And that becomes a part of this individual's perception. And while that's a really drastic example, in our own way, every one of us has, if not real traumas, perceived traumas. And our perceived traumas have shaped, think of a child that is at the store with mommy and sees this pair of high tops, these Michael Jordan shoes they just gotta have. And mom says, we can't afford that, you know that. And it was shared with this bitter energy. And in that moment, that child makes a decision. There's no money for the things that I want in life. That can stay with that child's perception when they become adults until their grave when they die. Because if there's one thing I've learned about humans is that if you don't go through a process of intentionally cataloging and exchanging limiting beliefs for empowering ones, they're all set to a mode called default. They just don't change on their own. So we're screwed. We're robots honoring decisions made in the past that hurt us, and they may have helped us in that moment. Dude, that woman that got raped might have decided men aren't safe. And for the next 10 years until she's old enough to defend herself or make better choices or whatever, it's probably good to stay away from men. But a time comes when the choices made in trauma now hurt us. And when we set those choices to a default of indefinite, like unchangeable or not meant to be thought of or just unconsciously there, and this is who I am, that's not your identity. It's a choice you made at a really bad, sucky moment in your life, really bad moment in your life. And so we have to be able to shift and change our perceptions. If we can't, if we don't, dude, we're busted.
I just yesterday I saw this video of Les Brown on TikTok, and he's talking about how weeds grow naturally. Like, you don't have to go out and water a patch of dirt for weeds to start growing.
It's effortless.
And we're like that. The negative beliefs are like weeds. But if you want tulips, if you want marigolds, if you want corn, if you want vegetables, you got to cultivate it. You got to work with it, and you got to get conscious. So, Kris, talk to me about this success matrix that you use in order to maintain your positivity.
So for me, I have found a hack to reflect on every experience as positive, because there's a lesson somewhere in anything. Listen, we set goals and we're either getting what we want or we're not getting what we want. And when we get what we want, we feel great as human beings. When we don't get what we want, most of us will say, there's something wrong with me, or there's something wrong with that other person. That's not the right take-home lesson. We should be asking, what's the lesson? I brought this up a little bit earlier because when something doesn't go my way, I ask, why? What am I supposed to learn? Not why me, but what am I supposed to learn? I set out, with this really aggressive goal for something that I want. I put my whole heart, mind, body, and soul. I go after it. And then in the end, I don't get it. Oh, now I'm unmotivated. I'm upset. I'm frustrated. I'm sad. That's not the take-home lesson. Listen, we're all entitled brats. What made you think you were supposed to get that thing in that period of time? It's not like you're God that knows hindsight before you get there. You got no hindsight until you've tried. And most of us, we're really inaccurate in guessing what it'll take to get something done for something we've never done before. So instead, you go at it with a different mindset, a different energy that says, hey, I would like to achieve this by this period of time. This is the energy and effort I'm going to put into it. And I'm going to do everything I can to get it. And if I don't, I'm going to get something more valuable than the result, the lesson. I'm going to ask why. So the success matrix is basically a formula that says, if you get what you wanted and you learned a lesson, it's successful. If you got what you wanted, but you didn't learn anything new because you've learned everything you need to learn, that's also success. But if you don't get what you wanted and you learned why, that is also success. The only way we get ourselves screwed is if we don't get what we want and we decide that it's because I'm not enough or someone else isn't. I'm mad at me or I'm mad at them. I'm sad at me, I'm sad at them. That's just victimhood. That's just creating a story that we're going to sell to other people to take part in our woes and our sufferings. I get it, kids can do that, but at some point we got to grow up, stop. Instead, just go back and say, what am I supposed to learn? You get the lesson. And it can be the most liberating feeling because now you're letting go. Instead of picking up a story of victimhood, what you're getting instead is the lesson, and then you can go at it again, try it again. If you try it armed with the lesson that you didn't have before, then you have a higher chance of winning. So ultimately, Carson, what I'm really saying is sometimes I get what I want, sometimes I don't, but either way, I'm getting the most valuable thing, which is the lesson. And if we can value the lesson more than the thing itself, more than the result that we're trying to produce, we're always successful. I may never make $1 billion and give $1 billion away. I'd love to do that in my lifetime. And I'm going to die trying, but I'm going to be happy either way in the pursuit because I love who I'm becoming in the journey. And every time I miss the mark and don't get something I wanted, as long as I'm learning, I am growing. And whatever is growing is living. Whatever isn't growing is dying.
And that's the perfect segue, actually, into habit number 5.
Awesome. I'm going to share this as our last one today, and then I think we have got to do a part 2.
Yep, we totally
because I want to give everyone all of these, and hopefully, as you're listening to this, you're asking yourself, "Do I have this habit?" And by the way, if you do, pat yourself on the back. You're being a good, responsible, growing human being, and you deserve success. But if you're finding that you don't have this, don't beat yourself up, or don't be upset, or don't figure out how to blame. Just say, "Wow, how can I implement this? What can I do with this?" This last habit we're going to talk about today is about growing. And again, Carson, when I put this book together, this outline, it was something to give to our team to say, hey, if you want to know whether you're an A player, if you want to know whether you're killing it in life, it comes down to these habits. And this habit for me is I want to hang with people, I want to employ people who have personal ambitions to grow in their life. A very, very close friend of mine was at a Christmas party not too long ago, and he didn't see this individual very often. It was like a brother-in-law. And he said, "Well, how you doing, man?" And the guy kind of gave him a low energy response. And he said, "Well, how's your job going?" And the guy works at Adobe. And he said, "Yeah, well, we're doing great and we're hitting our marks." And he says, yeah. But outside of work, like, tell me about like who you are. Like, what are your personal ambitions? How are you personally growing in life? And he looked at him. He's like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Well, come on, you gotta have interests or things that you're doing in your own life outside of work," because it didn't seem like he was liking his work. He's like, "Well, actually, I don't." And this person was portly, overweight. This person struggles in their marriage. This is a person who you wouldn't look at them and think, "Wow, yeah, this person is like, whew, they got it going on." It was the opposite. It's like they're struggling everywhere. And there wasn't this awareness, Carson. There wasn't this awareness that in life, if you're not growing, you are dying. So the question isn't are you growing, it's how are you growing? And everyone should have personal ambitions. Everyone should have goals. I want to work with people that outside of work are like, "Oh yeah, I'm working on this and I'm working on this and I'm developing that. And this is the progress that I'm making." And it doesn't matter whether they're achieving everything, but that they're in pursuit of it, that they're at least trying to achieve. Because if you don't have personal goals to really grow hardcore in your life, then we don't share a lot in common. We don't share enough in common because everything that, I'm about everything that awakens the human spirit to meet its potential. Like at my core, my mission, it's not, "Oh yeah, Kris Krohn's done $1 billion worth of real estate. He's that real estate guy." I'm not the real estate guy. "Oh yeah, he's that entrepreneur. He helps people along." I'm not that entrepreneur. I'm about one thing above all, meeting my potential. And the moment you meet it, it gets pushed a little further out saying, "Keep growing." And that's the journey I find the most joy in. That's the journey I get the most fulfillment in.
What was the statement you said to Colleen recently that she was like, "Kris," something about,
dude.
If I'm not growing, my life's not worth living.
I sometimes say things and my wife like puts me in check. And I was like, if we don't do this thing, my life's not worth living. And of course, my sweet wife's like, "My life with you is everything, with our kids and everything. How could you say that?" And I'm like, "No, I don't really mean it like that. I mean,"
but wasn't it along the lines of growth? Like if I'm not reaching for the next huge goal,
if I'm not meeting my potential, then why am I here? Like, screw everything. Let's check out. Let's go find a bridge.
Wow. That's heavy.
Well, listen, most people are living in some comfort zone of mediocrity, and they're okay with it. And dude, listen, every one of us gets to choose how we want to live our lives. I got some people right now deleting me on every social account, like, "No longer follow Kris." It's like, I'm not saying you have to aspire to be president of the United States. Oh my gosh, we need some of those. I'm not saying that you have to like want to do something really big, but I think that your life is a gift and you're meant to do something with it. And if you live a selfish life where it's only about you and consuming and taking, you're never going to be happy because fulfillment doesn't come from taking. Fulfillment comes from giving. Fulfillment comes from serving. Fulfillment comes from reaching out and impacting other people that's not you. And so at some point, I think we have to move from this egotistical, selfish life to this altruistic, selfless life, which is, how am I giving? How am I making a contribution? I've lived in both of those worlds. Now in the latter, fortunately, where I know I know how good it feels to be a part of the solution or to be giving back. And it's not just always all about me. That's growth. So here's what's strange about it. The most selfish thing that you can do is focus on you and grow. But at the same time, it's the most selfless thing that you can do, because the more you grow, the more you have to offer. The more you can inspire, the more you have to give back. when I meet people, I want them to be successful in every way they want. I want them to be, I want them to have as much money as they want in their life. And hopefully they graduate from me to we. And when we do that, fulfillment starts going through the roof, and achievement is now like, well, sometimes it matters, but it gets trumped pretty easily by a good feeling that says I impacted someone else's life. A couple of years ago, I started a habit, and I said, I want to donate an hour every day of pro bono mentorship to somebody. And I started finding souls in peril, people that were struggling. I met this man in the most bizarre of places, and he came up to me, he says, "You're Kris Krohn, aren't you?" And I said, "Yes." And he says, "I know who you are." I told my wife, "That's Kris Krohn." And I said, "Well, tell me about you." And he opened up and he shared that he was in one of the worst places of his life. And I said, "Here's my address. Meet me here every week." And he did. And after a handful of back-to-back meetings, he went from this, I'm about to commit suicide, throw myself off of a bridge, my life's not worth living, to awakening, to remotivating, finding himself, clearing up his identity issues with, the lies he had told himself he was versus, his real, true, authentic self, powerful self, by the way. And this individual reaches out to me every 6 months and just says, "Kris, I just got to thank you. You helped me reignite the spark within. You helped me rediscover the value and purpose of my life. You helped me figure things out." And that's something I like to do. I like to give back, and I don't want anything in return because I'm actually getting the biggest thing in return. It's this feeling of fulfillment, knowing that I did something that really mattered, and I gave my most valuable asset for it, my time. Good trade.
Growth. So that's the number 5 habit of our list.
And it's a system, by the way. Like, everyone should know, like, we're multidimensional human beings. How are you growing your relationships? Someone that is achieving wealth and is sucking it up in the love room, like your relationships are going out the window in a bad way. Guess what? Like, tell me you're happy and you're going to be a liar. Tell me that you're making all the money and you're happy in your marriage, but you're like 50, 80, 100 pounds overweight. Are you like trying to check out early from Earth School? Like, are you trying to die early? Do you like having less energy? Do you like being overweight? Do you like that? As multidimensional human beings, I think we should all have goals in our bodies and health. We should all have goals for personal growth. We should have goals with our relationships and goals in our finances. Everything meaningful can be wrapped up into those 4. I call it health, wealth, connection, and power. Your health, your wealth, your personal connections, and your personal power. And so for me, I always encourage people, you should have goals in all 4 of those areas. You should have a big goal for the year, and then break it down to quarterly goals, to monthly, to weekly, down to a daily. And by the time you break something big down to a daily goal, it should be small and easy. And then have the integrity to follow through on that every single day. Because tiny little things over time lead to really big accomplishments. You should have a system for growing.
Last week, we dove in deep on setting goals and the system that you have in place that really helps a person achieve those goals. So you guys can check that out. I think that's all we have time for today is the first 5 of 9 habits to help a person stand out with 100 times more results. We'll hit the other 4 next week, but in review, be early, respond quickly, follow through on what you say you're going to do, be positive, and always be growing. Little teaser for next week. Habit number 7 is report out. Habit number 8 is innovate. And number 9 is keep your personal drama and victimhood out of the workplace. So we're going to dive deep on those topics. I did want to throw something your way, Kris.
Okay.
Be positive. I still feel like there is just a world of things that people can learn in regards to this.
Days and days and days of training and mentorship.
We've had events that go 4 days in a row that do nothing else but teach you how to overcome this idea of being positive, because the weeds of our mind grow so naturally and you have to be so intentional to overcome them. You have spent time creating a system of breakthrough. You've also written literature on it. Talk to me about the free book that you have for us.
Yeah, so I wrote this book. Limitless, and it's basically a process that I developed for hunting down limiting beliefs that negatively impact our perception, and how you uproot them and then replace them with something positive and empowering. And out of the millions of dollars that I spent with mentors teaching and helping me grow, I took the best of the best and I basically formulated it into a single system that is designed to help someone have a conscious approach to creating awareness of what's not working, and then figuring out at the most deep subconscious level why, and then how to effectively shift and change it. And when people say, well, Kris, like, how come you're always growing, and like, how many, you got so much going on, and like, you got so many verticals and places that you're in, so much mastery, like, are you just like, how are you like that? And I'm like, well, honestly, it's just that I had the discipline to take myself through thousands of breakthroughs after doing hundreds of breakthroughs with my coaches. And I systematized it. I'm super passionate about giving this book away for free to people because I believe that you and I should be in charge of our own transformation. Nobody else. Get a coach, have a mentor for sure. But ultimately the onus is on you to change your life, nobody else. And you should have a system for that. So this book, I'm sure that somewhere affiliated here, you just go to kriskrohn.com, you're going to find a link.
Yep, I have that link for them, Kris.
Yeah,
it's kriskrohn.com/limitless free book. Again, that's kriskrohn.com/limitless free book, and they can get their copy for free.
Awesome. Well, listen, I want to thank everyone, if you've made it this far, to caring enough to hang with me and to be here and to have this conversation, because these basic habits, I'm just going to tell you and just attest to the fact that so much of the success that I've achieved in life has come from the trial and error of discovering these at points in my life, not having most of them, and then aggregating them through experts. And right now that's the exchange that we're having. So I hope you found something here that is useful to push you, propel you forward in your life. And all I can say is that each one of them matter, and in a matter of time, you're going to see the rewards of living them.
I wanted to give a little assignment to everybody to start implementing these habits, and I would love to hear success stories. Any success stories that come from this, I am making the commitment to respond to quickly. Go ahead and email me at carson@kriskrohn.com with your success stories, and I'd just love to hear any stories about how implementing these habits has... I feel like they're very small things, Kris, but they're tweaks to become an individual that someone can rely on. And as someone who's hired a lot of people, as someone who manages people, I can tell you, it's just amazing when you find an individual that you can rely on. And it's like, hire that guy, give that guy a raise, do everything we can to keep him here on our team because we can rely on him.
Yeah, 100%.
Thanks again for listening here on the Have It All Show, where we believe you can have it all, and you can have success in your health, your wealth, your connections, and your personal power. We'll be in touch with you guys next time.